Hey everyone, welcome to our second Guy Gavriel Kay live chat. This is our second get together as a group. We do have other members as part of our group, but they were unfortunately unable to be part of this second read along. And this is a particular discussion to a brightness long ago. So this is going to be a chat on that. We will start with non-spoilers for those who just want to maybe find out a little bit about what this book is about and how it appealed to us. And we will let you guys know when we start the spoilers. So joining me on this particular read-along is Ben from Books from Genghis Khan.
Ahoy.
We have Darko from Kindles and Kicks. And we have author Zammar Ahmer who's joining us.
Who is a nobody?
Oh, he is somebody. So I thought we'd just go around the circle here. Just say maybe just share some of your general thoughts of what you thought of the book, what maybe appealed to you most, maybe any kind of themes that stuck out for you. Whoever wants to take it away.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I wasn't putting up my hand to go. I was pointing at you.
Not pointing to me? Josh at Red Fairy Books put out a call for people to send him a clip where you discuss your favorite fantasy book of the 21st century. And Song for Our Bone is already my favorite book of all time that we read a couple months ago. And so that's my favorite fantasy book of the 20th century. And now I am trying to decide whether some of these favorites of mine, like the Bone Hunters, Changes, Words of Radiance, if some of these are any of them better than A Brightness Long Ago. Am I going to go for a recency bias pick for my favorite fantasy book of the 21st century? Maybe. I got to think it over, because man, did I love every page, every chapter. Some of them were long chapters to dig into, like beautifully crafted, elegant short stories. And this hit so hard emotionally and personally, because on the first page we get this retrospective narrator who's, staying up late one night and he's thinking about his younger days. Oh, what did he say? He is thinking of a story from when he was learning the world and his place in it. He cannot tell all the tale, and he won't. We see only glimpses of history, even our own. It is not entirely ours. In memory, in writing it down, in hearing or in reading it, we can reclaim only part of the past. Sometimes it is enough. ... That's how this book opens, and I'm like, oh my God, this was speaking to my soul already on the first page, because I have a very personal history with nostalgia of thinking about all these wonderful moments and times from my past, or things that I would have wanted to do differently, and things could have changed. And so this book just beautifully spoke to that part of me, because we get that retrospective narrator popping in every so often to comment on these times when he was younger and he was swept up in this crazy set of events. And he was just this unformed person at that time. And now he's looking back on it all. And so it was a beautiful story. I couldn't have loved it more. And so the question is just like, how high up in my favorite books of all time is it going? That's my major question.
Nice. So I can go next, I guess. So back in January-ish, I was sending this guy off to the editors. That's the second book in my duology. And when I sent that to the editor, I was at a bit of a confidence low, because I just gotten book one back and it was all like red line, and it's not a good feeling to see your manuscript covered in red and like beta reader feedback and all that. So I told my editor, half joking, I was like, go easy on me. I'm feeling kind of bad because I just read some Robin Hobb. I just read Fool's Assassin and the Fits in the Fool trilogy, and I was like blown away by that. So I said, go easy on me. I'm feeling kind of bad right now about my skills as an author. And the editor said, haha, wait till you read GGK. And I was like, okay, that's a vote of confidence right there. And like pretty much from page one with this book, my first thought was, this is not a good book for me to read. Like, for anyone with authorial ambitions, they should not read this book. People always say that GGK is like your favorite author's favorite author, which to me is like, why? If you're an author, you don't read this guy because he'll just make you feel like crap. Like, why would you ever read this? So then, you start off, and I think I wrote it down here, but it's like maybe the second paragraph, starting off. The sailors say the rain misses the cloud even as it falls through light or dark into the sea. I miss her like that as I fall through my life, through time, the chaos of her time. I dream she is alive even now, but there is nothing to give weight or value to that. It is only me and what I want to be true. It is only longing. We can want things so much sometimes. It is the way we are. It's so poignant, so succinct, and so simply written, beautiful. And his words just draw you into the story, which is almost like a collection of short stories, kind of like a reflection of memory itself. It's told in this very non-linear fashion, and you have all these perspective shifts, and in the end, you can kind of sit back at the end of it and be like, wow, that was a really cohesive and beautiful story. Even though like at no point in the middle of the story did it feel like you knew what the overall plot was or what this story was going to be, if that makes any sense. It doesn't like at the end, it all falls together like wonderfully. But throughout the story, it's almost as if you're just reading these short snippets of time. And to me, it felt a lot like, I feel like memory is a key theme in this book. And it felt like that's the way it was written. Like it is this non-linear kind of interesting narrative style where you're just kind of getting like glimpses of the past through different characters' POVs. And yeah, it was beautiful. I really, really like this one. So.
Yeah, I'll go next. So this was probably the first book I ever read that gripped me from like the first 4 or 5 words. Yeah, because when he said a man no longer young, like right there, I love how he said that instead of like old or aged or something like that, because no longer young can mean so many things to different people. Like even in your 20s, by any objective standard, you're still a youth, but no longer young can mean, hey, in your teens, because as you get older, the more you reflect. And I think that very much starts in, post-adolescence. So I think any generation can really relate to this book just by those few words. Like, thank you for not saying old or up in age or, an octogenarian or whatever. I don't know how old the character is, but that gripped me right away. And speaking of Robin Hobb, that's what it reminded me of in the beginning, of Fitz, going back, telling his story as an older man.
Yeah.
And Robin Hobb is probably my favorite fantasy author of all time. And I can see, I'm not sure if she draws inspiration from GGK, but I can kind of see the similarities there. And I love a coming of age story that's written from the perspective of the person when they're older and they're reflecting on their regrets. Because, as I approach middle age, I'm doing the same thing. So that's why I can relate to this book so much. And also how like random opportunities can happen out of nowhere, just from sheer luck or happenstance from meeting others. Like I really appreciated how that happened in the book. Because a lot in my life has happened because of me meeting someone and they offered me an opportunity and I took it. So, and also much like him, who the character De Niro, I'm sorry, I can never remember his name.
Daniel?
Daniel, we can call him by his kid's name. Daniel, yeah, he started from humble beginnings, with a father who was just a tailor, and to reach the heights that he did, it was just, to me, absolutely amazing. And it was all, yes, there's nobody like Hobb, but
I think
GGK,
Hobb gave this book. Oh, sorry to interrupt, man. I think Hobb gave this book 5 stars on Goodreads. I think.
Really? Wow.
And
okay.
She's notorious for being very hard with her ratings.
Yeah, she said 2 stars. 2 stars is okay. She said 2 stars is okay. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that because she was happy if anyone just read her book, which I think is amazing coming from any author. And GGK's prose is just unmatched. I mean, he can write a freaking manual on how to operate a vacuum cleaner and I would read it because he just makes everything sound so beautiful and enchanting and enthralling.
Yeah.
And I could just, I actually wish this book was a little bit longer because once I got into it, I didn't want it to stop.
Yeah.
And the characters. I mean, gosh, I could just go on and on. As Zammar had mentioned, this is just going to be a gush fest about GGK.
But
Chris,
like
say something
beautiful
bad
prose,
about
beautiful prose, but not dense, not overly flowery. It's just the way he puts things is just a way I've never heard before. The rhythm of the sentences, just new imagery, but with simple, plain language, just done in an elegant way. It's really magical.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, to finalize my thoughts on this on a non-spoiler level anyway, I honestly did not hear about this book. I thought I had a good knowledge of every title that Guy Gavriel Kay put out, but this one I did not hear about until I forget. I think it was you, Ben, who said, "Hey, let's read read this book for our next GGK book," and I'm like, "What is this?" So I was I was like, okay, yeah, I guess he wrote this too. So this was definitely a very pleasant surprise. I'm a big history buff fan, and I definitely love this is my second book in reading of Guy's work, and you definitely feel the love of our own history, especially in the Mediterranean of his world, and it really reflects in the cultures he creates here. Very similarities between, when we read A Song for Arborn, those reflections in our real world, and now in this one, especially with the more Italian feel to this particular entry. For me, Josh, this is my second GGK book.
Yeah, it's my first one. I was going to start with Under Heaven, actually, but then Ben dragged me to this read along, and I was happy to go along with it, and I don't regret it one bit.
And it's my third one
as well. So, okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
we're kind of a little bit everywhere on our journey.
Yeah.
I don't know where I feel compared to like other works by GGK yet, because I think I need to read more of them as to where this book would fall. But I'm still so new to his writing and his prose and the way he does character that I'm still like loving everything I read so far by this author, and it is a complete different story than A Song for Arborn. One of the things I loved about this, and both and Darko, you talked about it as reflection of life as a younger person. In fact, I think that is a big theme for this book, and it's a big theme in our lives, especially when we do get into that middle age. I'm almost 50, so. We do get a little more of those reflective moments in our past, in our youth. And I love the quote where it says, "The random spinning of fortune's wheel can what sway us, change us, shape, or end our days." And I think it's just kind of like the whole sort of theme of this book. Everybody's making choices. Everybody reflects on if these choices are going to have ramifications going further and further down the road of this story. And it was hard to determine where this was going to end. So you kept turning the page because you didn't know where you were going to go with this story. But I mean, we know obviously the main character, and I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler because it starts from page 1. We know, this is a reflection of his life, and he's telling us this story. So we know we're going to probably end with his thing. There's another quote I like because we're quoting things here, and it talks about memory, and it says, "Shelter can be hard to find. A place can become our home for reasons we do not understand. We build the memories that turn into what we are, and then what we were as we look back. We live in the light that comes to us." And I just, the way he, and that was an end of a chapter, and the way he just does endings to chapters
Yeah.
makes you go to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Every
Man.
single time, no matter who you're following. So yeah, just an overall great story. And it's not a story I usually read. I usually read, dark fantasy, plenty of blood, action, and this is just like, I feel like it's like almost like a fable in a sense, or like a telling of something that really happened in real life in another way too. So just awesome.
Ooh, so well put there. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead then.
No, go for it.
Oh, no, like Chris, this is very much an intro to me to historical fantasy. GGK has been, because prior to that, I was all epic fantasy, dark fantasy, grim dark. So I was so used to, magic systems, wizards, monsters. So I had to kind of reframe my approach when first reading GGK to understand historical fantasy is different. It may not have all those fantastical elements that I'm used to, but GGK made it so easy to me, because the world he crafts, it has enough elements in it where it still gives me, the fulfillment of reading a fantasy book, but yet even more, because now I'm learning about like real world events, but in a second world, which I think is awesome, and it's been like a joy reading both Saga of Arbonne and this book.
Yeah,
I find that the historical fantasy approach for me, now 3 books in, so read Song for Arbonne, even not knowing anything about medieval France, like I felt like the grounding of that in a real place just gave it some extra weight. I really felt the cultures in a way I usually don't in secondary world fantasy. I felt the weight and reality of them. And then I read Lions of Alrasan, which is set in medieval Spain, and kind of the same feeling there. I knew a little bit about the history there, but it just, again, the settings, the cultures, the religions, like the fact that they're all based on real world history, like it just immediately gave it this sense of weight that I don't usually feel. Like I'm usually really getting attached to characters and the plotting, maybe a little bit of the world building, but with GGK, the setting is so much, it comes alive, and the cultures and everything. It feels like you have a real investment in that side of things too. And then this one, I know a little about Renaissance Italy, but I haven't spent much time in Renaissance Italy, like, reading books set there or watching movies or shows set there. And it was just a fun place to be. But when you're in Renaissance Italy, you're usually like there with the popes or with the kings or the dukes, or we got a little bit of that with some of the artists and the dukes and the pope, but almost the entire focus is with some just minor characters who get swept up in the larger events. And it was just such a pleasure to see kind of this underside of Renaissance Italy with the mercenary companies and a horse race and things like the pretty modest life of this tailor's son who goes to get a great education at a famous school and then becomes a courtier and just takes part in some major events almost by accident. I just love how the setting brought everything to life and made it just a really fun time and gave everything a little bit of extra weight. But even without that, even if we didn't have that, just the character work alone blew me away. I was so enraptured by some of the main POVs, Guadagno, Chera, Danio, and Adria. Just the two of them formed this real heart. And then the physician character, her surname Yelena.
Elena, yep.
Just these POVs, and then we get a little bit from the mercenary captains too. Like, I just grew so attached to all these characters. I found them so individual and real to me. I was really living alongside them and with them, living from their perspectives, and I was living every one of their victories and defeats, and just I was able to inhabit them so fully. So just on the character front, this blew me away. And then it has this compelling plot that you don't know where it's going, and the beautiful writing and the setting work. So man, everything. But the character work here just blew me away in a way that I don't think. So my previous one I did alone, not as part of the group, Lions of Alrasan, and I just the characters there were not just, they didn't come alive. They weren't as compelling as the ones here. Here I just threw my whole soul in with them and was living alongside them.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think if you don't mind me interrupting, I have to address John. He's throwing some shade my way. I actually just moved into this house like 3 days ago, so there's gonna be a bookshelf there, I promise, and that big box back there is full of books. So anyway, it'll happen. Um, did you guys do this one with audio, like immersion reading? I did immersion reading, and I think
Yeah.
Simon Vance, he just nailed it because he had like the Italian accents, and he was and it just added so much flavor and depth to the world for this.
I did not. I'm still getting used to audio. Audio is one of those things where if like one small distraction and I have to like rewind like a whole like pages because I get very easily distracted with audio. I'm trying to get better because I want to do some more audio with work. And I feel like with GUK especially, it's something I need to like read from the pages. But I heard the audio is fantastic for sure.
Yeah, like it was definitely not one I would do audio alone, but immersion reading, it just was really immersive. Like I literally just felt like I was there, in this world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Vance was incredible. I did a lot of it immersively as well. Or if I listened, I would then come back and kind of read in print to kind of make sure I got everything. But I did a good chunk of it immersively, and I agree with you. He did an amazing job, and it helped me to be transported there. But yeah, the writing is just so transporting. It's just effortless. Sometimes I really have to make an effort to like leave my surroundings behind, my life, my mind, and like be there with the characters. But this was like every time I came back, effortless, completely effortless.
I think like so my own perspective is good prose is the kind of prose which makes it so that reading is effortless. Like it should pull you into the story without you putting in effort yourself. And then the prose itself, like the words, the way the sentences are structured, that should do most of the world building, if that makes sense. Like you shouldn't have to write paragraph after paragraph describing the world. It's just the way the words are written. That gives you the essence of the world, which like authors like Robin Hobb do that so well. You read Assassin's Apprentice, you instantly get a feeling of the Six Duchies. And GGK just did it beautifully here. It was so like I went into this expecting really dense, complex prose because everyone talks about how he has beautiful prose, but it was actually just simple and elegant and enchanting, I think were the words used. And then like Ben said, I mean, the characters were just so like instantly compelling, like from the get-go. And he does like really interesting things with POVs as well, where you have like Danio who's writing in this first-person framing narrative retrospective POV, and then you have like sometimes you'll have a POV from Adria, but all of a sudden it's third-person present tense, and then you'll have and then you'll have an Elena POV who's like third-person past tense. And I think it takes a lot of guts to do something like that. For most authors, it would just fall apart, but he just pulls it off seamlessly. There's no scene breaks or anything to even describe like, okay, now we're changing POVs. Nope, it just continues the story. You never feel like you're ungrounded, from those POV shifts. It just feels perfectly natural, and everything falls into place. So, more gushing.
You're right when you say it's seamless, because I didn't even really notice it until you pointed it out in the chat. Like that's how from from first person to third person. I was like, he's doing that. I had to go back because I was just so engrossed in the story that I paid no attention to that. And that shows, like you said, the ability of him to just grab you right away. And there's no need to do full-on expositions of anything. It's natural.
Yeah. There's such an enrichment to his characters that I appreciate, especially in this one. I think even more so than A Song for Orgrim, which I think overall I might have liked more. But I think with this one of the stronger things I liked about this particular entry was everybody had a purpose. Like no matter how minority that character was in the overall narrative, they had they played a thing that had a larger impact overall to the main plot and to the story of our main characters here. And I think each played their purpose. There was a lot of like one-off characters, and when we get into spoilers, we can talk a little more in detail of the ones that really kind of stuck out for me. But there's a lot of there's like little breaks of, and then we go into a character's voice, they have their little scene, and then you never see them again. But there is a mention of them sometime later, and it shows what the impact their part was to the story. And I think that is just so well done. Sometimes you just have these filler characters that don't have any meaning, and every book there are filler characters, of course, but these are just they're detailed enough to where you're not pulled too far out, but you're still want to like, ooh, this guy sounds interesting. I want to know a little more.
I think this book in particular has a very small cast for fantasy, and so I think, Chris, you nailed it. Even with the very minor secondary characters, they end up having a major impact here one way or another. And they're all in here for a purpose. Like, he hasn't actually named that many characters in here, probably like many, many fewer than average for epic fantasy, or even historical fiction. And so, it's like this pared down tale where, and that's why I almost didn't mind the length of it. Like, I saw the Library Ladder, who does great Guy Gavriel Kay videos on YouTube. He mentioned in his GGK tier list that he wished Brightness Long Go were a little longer, and I know, was it Darko? You just said that earlier too, or was that Chris? Was that you, Darko?
I could have gone longer for sure, but I think it was Darko.
I could have too, because I was having such a great time. But then, if it were expanded, maybe he didn't have more compelling scenes in him for the story. Maybe he, there just wasn't more of the story to tell. And I'm glad that what we have just feels like absolute perfection, with not a wasted scene, word, something I would take out. And so I'd probably rather that than someone try to just expand it for the sake of it. But because it really is just this gem, and shorter than average for what we read, and that I think makes it stand out a little bit.
Yeah, I think most of the time when someone feels like it could have been longer, it's usually the perfect length.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Like, there's a reason the story was so compelling. I think otherwise it would have dragged on. I don't know. GGK knows what he's doing, I think.
For sure. We always want more as readers, don't we?
Yeah. That part is true. Yeah. Like, I wanted to savor this because I didn't want it to end. That part, that's for sure. But then when it does end, it's just such a satisfying ending as well. That
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, when you guys were, I was deliberately taking my time. So I know when you guys were like already halfway through, I'm like, oh man, I'm only on chapter 3, but I want to like take in like each chapter, and I'm sure you guys were the same. But at the same time, like, I got to keep turning the page. This is just it. Every time you end a chapter, it's like I gotta continue on, because the way he ends chapters is just.
Sometimes I'm forced to like put down books in the middle of chapters just because I'm like running between things, or
they're really long. Really long.
Or it's dinner time with the wife, or like sometimes I have to put chapters down in the middle of them, and these are pretty long. But this book, it was particularly painful to do that in, because each scene felt such a complete story in and of itself. I just wanted to play out these scenes, and I loved how he would do POV switches within a scene. That's one of my favorite things that any author might do. And I just thought he did it to such great effect here, because he would like switch off POV, and the last thing that someone thought, like the next person would be thinking something in parallel, like very similar. Like I have one right here. I was thinking as fast as I ever had in my life. POV switch. She is thinking as fast as she ever has in her life. Like that was a great one. And there was a lot like that. Like that was just a little delight that was in a lot of these POV switches and sequences, that he would trade them off in a really creative way, just add a little flair where most authors would not have anything like that, really. And
even in that example, there's a tense change, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, like you said, Zammar, I appreciated that, because I really do think it differentiated the voices. Mm-hmm. And I immediately noticed it with Audria, of course, like you said, present tense with her voice, and whereas Donio is like reflective on his voice, and even the other voices are a little more different than that, reflective voice. Donio's the only one that's like has that, I'm reflecting back on my youth and all that. So.
Yeah. He's like Fitz except less stupid.
Yes.
So
what's interesting is that we could go to spoilers. I was gonna go into
I was gonna ask. We are
anyway.
at the 30 mark. Does anybody have any final non-spoiler thoughts?
Just that, like Chris said, this is not a very well-known book in the community for some reason. It's published just like 5 years ago, and I think mostly GGK's most read and most well-known stuff is all from the 90s. Tigana and Song for Our Bone and Sailing, and the Serenity Mosaic, I think, is also from the 90s, maybe. Yeah. Oh, he's starting Sailing to Serenity next week. But he's still got it. He's still got it. Like,
yeah.
I think some like age has sharpened his pen a little bit, and he's doing some tricks he wasn't pulling back in his earlier books, and things like are a little more subtle. Like, there's not like a big human villain antagonist here, whereas like most fantasy authors, like that's just a staple of any narrative is like the larger than life villain. But I love that there really isn't that here, and the conflict comes from more subtle directions, and I just think it's a shame that more people aren't reading his recent stuff, and it's not getting the buzz, or that this isn't getting like literary buzz in the literary world, like literary awards and on lists and things. Like it boggles my mind, because he considers himself like in the fantasy genre, it's just like not worthy of literary merit, where a lot of the lit fic that gets recognized is probably just pales in comparison to the impact that this is delivering. So I want to take away for non-spoilers that check out his recent stuff, and he's still got it.
So before we leave non-spoilers, I'm so sorry, man.
No, I'll be quick. I just said, Ben, I totally agree. Because it's funny, when I had never heard about this book until it was brought up in a group chat, and when I looked and saw it was published in 2019, I was like, I don't know. This is more recent. Is he still good? But yeah, he definitely still got it. Definitely.
Nice. Yeah, so I was just gonna say, before we leave non-spoilers, maybe what we should do is, who is this book not for? If like, who would this not work for? What do you guys think? No one. Everyone should just read it.
I would say anybody. Go ahead, Darko. No, go ahead.
No, I was like, if you're a fan of more traditional fantasy, if you're looking for like magic and wizards and large epic scale battles, and I don't think this is for you.
Good versus evil, like hero's journey,
exactly.
type of stuff. Yeah.
A lot of action heavy. Readers may not gravitate towards this particular entry. Scenes that are action are very impactful to the story, I think, but you're not going to get a lot of them in this.
Yeah, I agree.
Good points. I was having trouble, but you both nailed it. Yeah.
All right, guys, I think we're going to head into spoilers. So I'm warning you in the chat now. Hopefully we don't lose everybody because it's a strange book to us. So, I mean, it's a book that we never heard of in his repertoire. So we will be jumping off in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Definitely give it a read, Britton.
1.
Where's that Jake guy? Hasn't he read this one?
Yeah, he's on West Coast time. Might be a little too early.
Maybe
for him,
he can catch the record or something.
Oh, he'll definitely catch it. It's one of his favorite books.
Yeah.
People might not like this sort of setting.
For sure. Yeah.
one
Okay.
of the great
So-
flourishes. Oh yeah, go for it.
No, I was gonna say. So, guys, that first chapter.
That was a
An
great
open
first
end.
chapter.
It was.
Oh, and some of that POV hopping too.
So compelling with the murder of the beast. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god. What how tense. I thought Adria was done for in the first chapter. And Danyo is caught up, like, it was so tense and gripping. Oh yeah, I don't think Matt's read it, so we got to be
Oh
careful.
no, Matt's not ready. Oh, okay. Matt,
Uh,
we did non-spoilers like the first 30 minutes. So.
yeah, Matt can just rewind and watch the non-spoiler gush.
Yeah.
We'll try to keep it at just the first chapter for a little bit, but man, that first chapter, amazing tension. And when Danyo came across Adria on the stairs and she's like bleeding out, and there's still a little bit of like romantic tension between them with their dialogue back and forth, and you know that the kiss and
About the kiss
she has
and the
the poison
poison
lips.
lips.
Like the dialogue was just like sparkling. It was so charged and electric just in this first chapter. And man, the Beast character was so dangerous. Like that Duke of Malaysia, like so threatening and scary. Like, man, it was intense. That whole thing was so good. The first chapter was so gripping. That could have been a short story. That could have been a short story in itself.
Huberto, the beast.
And it was like you got the feeling of how much of an impact Adria had on Daniel, like just through like the way he was describing their interaction and like how he felt when he saw her and stuff. It was like she was kind of tall, but you know, like just he couldn't take his eyes off her, and something about her drew him to her, and then he wanted to help her, even though it would potentially get him killed and stuff like that. And yeah, it was such an gripping first chapter.
Yeah,
What I like. Go ahead, Darko. I always talk over you. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, I like how the Beast, how he was the cause of death was essentially due to his like sexual escapades, because any normal person, if they heard screaming outside, like, you know, Daniel Morani is just outside the door, like, oh, and he's like, oh, that just sounds normal. That happens all the time. And you got, you know, the girl screaming bloody murder and all this noise going on. And had he not been the man he was, you know, they would have knew something was wrong and he could have saved his life. But the fact that you know, engage in these kind of behaviors and that has led ultimately to your demise, I thought was, you know, a great way for Adria to get him.
Yeah.
What I appreciate a lot was the subtle hints that we got from Danio's point of view when he first sees Adria. He tells us, the readers, that I've met her before. It's like, oh, okay, interesting. You know, we don't know yet how that transpired or how that event transpired. And then, you know, we switch back to her and it's like, damn, you know, I want to know, I want to know why. So it definitely keeps you, grasp you in that first chapter. Make sure, you know, that was such a very impactful thing. I mean, Roberto's fetishes are very, you know, they're very intense. So, you know, it's something to draw, you know, that audience in, and, you know, you're hoping for a success for this strange girl you've never met, and you're really rooting for her already, you know, from the very beginning. You don't know anything about her, but you're rooting for her immediately, which I think is a really good way to grasp you into at least her character. I loved the mentor here, Marani. I loved that he kept Danyo kind of innocent of the going on in the room. Like he would always send him away to like get something from the kitchen, like wine or whatever. So he didn't have to hear like the constant, you know, this is a routine thing that happens to young people that go into his bedroom is their, you know, the violence. So I appreciate that interaction already. And of course, you know, Guy tells you kind of what happens with his, you know,
the fact that he was such a good person, the fact that he was such a good person, and like GGK really makes it impactful and sad how Danyo kind of knows he's going to be sacrificed by letting this murder take place, and that he needed to do what he could to help Mirani. Like, that's one of those examples of those minor characters that just made such a mark on the page in so little time and had this greater effect for the narrative and characters. And just like Mindelin's talking about, like adding to the world building in so subtle a way, like yeah, we get this sense, like finally we learn why this assassin was sent, and Falco is trying to destabilize the region, maybe for his own gain, and then that plan doesn't even work out. It's just a failure of a plan, and that sets this whole narrative into motion. But yeah, I love that we get even if you knew nothing about Renaissance Italy, and I knew very little, I do love that I got this overall sense of how the politics worked between all these different like dukedoms, and there's the really powerful city-states. There's the kind of satellite ones that the big city-states are kind of fighting for control over, to have under their influence, and like all that was done, I think, pretty subtly and elegantly, just as part of the narrative. Yeah.
And like, what a great introduction to Adria, because you're just like, who is this complete badass, like walking into the lair of the beast, kissing the guy with poison, and then like stabbing him to death, and then later on you find out she's the daughter of nobility, and it just what like how do these two fit, But oh, what a great character, man.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was unexpected for me as well. Is like, you think she's like maybe just like somebody who's like an assistant or something, but she's royalty. She's like nobility at least, and she has a prominent role in her family's hierarchy, and it's like somebody this important doing a job like this is just, that was just crazy to me.
Great. It reminds me of Arya Stark a little bit, because even though she was destined to be like this queen or princess, she's like, no, I want to be an assassin instead.
Yeah, it's really powerful that she's seizing her own autonomy and living the life she wants, and knowing that it's probably going to come to an end, and which makes everything so poignant for her, that she's just trying to, like, as long as she can go before she has to come back to like society, she's gonna ride it out and take risks. And it just was so easy to relate to her and empathize. Yeah, what a great character. Like, that chapter 1, just dynamite. And then it never ends. Like the tension, the amazing scenes, because we go from there to like outside when Danyo is passing Adria off, and like Falco is like, oh, is he gonna kill this guy Danyo? And then he lets him go, and they go to the healer, and then we're in the healer's shack, and then all of a sudden like Falco arrives, and Falco's arch enemy arrives, and it's like, oh my god, like stuff is going down here at the healer's hut. Yeah. And like the tension in this opening, it just never stopped. It just kept on being strung out, and you never knew it was going to happen. And I love that we get this like we get this great rivalry, but we don't get the backstory until like much later. I love that, like, he left us wondering like what's going on for so long there. But like that first scene where they meet each other, it felt so dangerous. Like the way that like, talking about minor characters, we get one of Falco's lieutenants. Was it Capo? He was such like a nice kind of character, that is such like a down to earth, loyal kind of young kid, and then he just gets slain by this famed mercenary, Captain Teobaldo Monticola. So we automatically just like hate Teobaldo. He's like, oh, this is an evil villain guy, and then that gets complicated later. But in this moment, GGK does one of my favorite things in the whole book, which is one of the fantasy elements, which is every character who dies, they get like a POV from their spirit that's hovering above their dead body. Like this was one of my favorite flourishes from the whole book. Right? Every one of those was a highlight. They were just those POVs, like that sometimes were just like a page or two or less in Capo's case, like, were so impactful and so sad and poignant, with these spirits who are, leaving too soon the land of the living. And I love that. I just absolutely love that.
And I love how it's like pretty much right away the relationship between Manticola and Falco is set up, and it's such a it's such an interesting dynamic because it's not just like, oh, I hate you and you hate me. There's also like you can tell that there's a lot of respect there as well, and they're kind of like playing off each other the way they're talking. Yeah, really well done.
I felt really sorry for the healer at times because she, no matter where she went, she would get caught up in all these major events.
She's like, oh shit, these guys again. No, Ben, you brought up a great point.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was just going to say, you brought up a great point about, and this was where I was going to get with the minor characters and Kopo. I mean, and it's just a credit to GGK again with just being able to like, okay, cool. We're getting like these like different perspectives of everything that's going on. You never thought maybe you were going to get a perspective of Adria's escort over to, Focal. Focal?
Yeah.
I can never say his name. And we just get his little perspective, and it's like, okay, kind of cool, and it's like and then he's a one-off character, he's like, oh, okay, never mind. But it's like you did still kind of get invested in him, and he did kind of have his role to play.
Yeah.
So
it was great, like little flashback too. If we get like Falco's wife, I think, telling him that he has to keep Adria alive, and like just like a little flashback like that just really brought his character to life and kept me invested in him. And they're like, oh damn, like he's already a goner in this early scene. Like he's already ripping my heart out with a minor character death, and just feeling so bad that he couldn't accomplish what he was live the life he was hoping to. And so poignant right there, like this early scene. Like usually you don't get something like that in a book until midway at least, but he was not pulling his punches in this one.
I feel like there's a lot of like Adria in Jelena and vice versa. I think they're both like these two women that are very free spirited. They're kind of like living kind of their life the way they choose. I mean, this is obviously, I will say, I think this book read very like sort of like the sexes were almost equal. There's a lot of power with the women in this particular entry. I feel like that maybe that I appreciate, and I think that was another a little bit of a fantasy element. I don't know a full extent of Renaissance Italy and how women's roles in society, but I do feel like this was something that Guy decided to do in this particular entry, and I do feel like there was a little more. Now, men were probably ultimately the rulers, but you can tell women did have a very big role in decisions, and a lot of the men we meet in this game respected their women and almost feared them too. So and I do like how both Jelena and Adria had this, just like I said, free spirit. They kind of just lived their life and like screw anybody who got in their way, kind of thing.
And they almost hooked up too.
And they also
yeah. That was another great scene where it's like Yelena was like, ooh, I maybe should have taken her up on her offer, but I was disrespected, and I had to teach her a lesson. And just like that little tiny exchange they had also just left an impact. It's like, oh wow, like that didn't turn out how any of the characters wanted, but it was a really complex like psychological moment that left a mark for both characters. And like to see them continue to communicate later on, and did they meet again? I think they met again later on, but I just love that like we didn't just leave Yelena in part one, and that she came back around, and the twirlings of fate and everything brought her back into contact with the characters. But like just that tiny little exchange was really well done, and didn't play out like in cheaper or pulpier books, you know, they might have had like a sexual encounter right there, but yeah, I really appreciated that.
Yeah,
There's something about Jelena that too. It's like that got to me. It was like she kind of gave all of her patients like happy endings or something, because she always seemed to like sleep with all of her patients.
Yeah, she's like a free spirit. She's like living outside the bounds of society. Like she's not Christian, and she's, you know, living alone as a single woman. It's like she's just like a complete free spirit, and that was like such a powerful character. Like contrasted with Adria, who is seemingly like wants to live that way, but is, because of her family background, knows that she's like tethered to society, and so we see kind of like, ooh, if she weren't tethered, she could be like Yelena, but she basically all she has to look forward to is either going to a nunnery or marrying a noble, and she doesn't like either of those outcomes for herself. And so Yelena's life is like the peak at what she could be if you know, Adria wasn't tethered by family.
Yeah, and I think Adria always knows that she's going to have to go back at some point to the Machera family, right? Like she always says, this thing with Falco, this is temporary. I don't know how long it'll last, but I want it to last as long as it can, kind of vibe.
But I love how Falco was the cool uncle here. Fully supporting her goals and efforts to become whatever she wants to be, behind the back of his brother. So I mean, which is causes a whole set of other problems. But no, I really appreciate that about him.
Yeah, that's where, Chris, the more fantastic element of like someone who's like a male in that society, like Falco, is probably not like a feminist thinker like that, who is so approving of the niece, you know, playing assassin and soldier and everything. Like, so that's almost like the little bit of the escapism. It's like we don't have to tether ourselves to historical reality, because this is actually secondary world fantasy. Like that's where Kay can play around with it and is totally free to do his own thing. I think that's why he loves this historical fantasy style, because he doesn't have to limit himself to, you know, trying to be historical. So that's one of the great benefits, I think, of this approach. I think he called it a quarter turn towards fantasy, but it frees him up. He hasn't, and so it is cool. Like we get a sense that this society is patriarchal and women have very little options, but we, like, some of the main characters here are you know, almost like modern like feminist males, and I just like the dynamics between, like, you know, Falco and people, and the males have like these strong female, you know, wives or romantic attachments, and I think that adds a nice balanced gender dynamic to these books.
Do you think there's an interpretation that Falco is using her though? Like he feels a lot of guilt as well. I think that definitely comes across on the page, but at the same time, he uses her multiple times for his own gain. You know, he deploys her like Toranaga from Shogun.
Well, I guess she's kind of using him in a way as well, you know, to help fulfill her own, you know, goals in life. So I guess, you know, it's a mutual beneficial relationship.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
For sure. And then our main guy there gets pulled into both of these.
That middle part of the book is wild, where Danya's just going to the race, and he meets up with Teobaldo Monticola's. Like, in the middle of this book, when he's like, I was with Teobaldo, I'm like, what? Like, how did you get entangled with Monticola? And then we flash back to how he just met his band on the road and challenged the soldier to the little horse race. Like, that was a dramatic scene. Like, that whole part of the book was so surprising and delightful, how Danyo got entangled up in everyone's lives.
And again, it was one of those random moments that shapes his outcome throughout the whole story too. And it's just amazing how that was written, you know, and how that comes to pass.
I thought Daniel was kind of a snitch in that part because he kind of told like Falco's whole plan about the horse race. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Danio's got a little bit of a darker side. He's got a little snark to him, I think, for sure. Yeah.
And ambition. I think like he wanted to better his own position, and he saw an opportunity to really, make an in with a powerful guy, and then like that moment that he saw Adria in like the church as the rider, like that was like such a crazy moment for him, and it's like, what's going on? And then he figures it out, and then they're going around town placing bets. Like that was so much fun. The lead up to that, the race, but even before that, like Chris, you mentioned the minor characters. How about they meet a monk or a priest on the road who's like, I'm not getting out of your way, like, and he's like thinking, I'm gonna be a martyr, and they came so close to killing him, and then Danio like intervenes, and then he later like he goes to Sarantium to like fight next to Teobaldo Monticola's son, and like out of nowhere,
Nardo.
Yep. Nardo. Yeah. Out of nowhere, like that priest character who is such a little like annoying, nothing in that scene, became such a noble, poignant, like romantic hero at the end. Like,
it was a beautiful ending for him.
Yeah, that was amazing, and it was just like, man, I would love a story of Nardo and the son there, and just how that whole relationship evolved, and and I mean, it's just brilliant. I mean, and it was like you said, Ben, it was one little snippet in one chapter, and then we got the later snippet towards the end of the book with just this little minor character, and then telling an amazing story, of love, loss, all of that right there in just those little few paragraphs. Just amazing.
Yeah. And like at that time on the road, they also met, I think he's one of my favorite characters, but Antonami Sardi.
Antonami.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's so cool.
Poor Antonami.
He starts out on the page as such just a naive, like hedonistic, just like rich boy's son, loud, like good for nothing.
He's like, I'm gonna go race my beautiful horse at the race, and everyone's like, "Are you dumb? Why would you do that?"
What an arc for Antonami! Like he provided great comic relief in this early part where he's just a fool, and during the race he provides some extra comic relief, and then like one of the like most thrilling or just out of nowhere moments of this whole book for me was when Antonami came to Adria's door and gets shot, and I'm like, oh my god, he's dead. I like couldn't believe it. I
thought he was dead. The way Guy writes off his characters, I thought he was dead.
And then watching him get healed by Elena and changed by interacting with her and like becoming wiser and like seeing a little bit of that development and how other people notice that change, like that's one of the most satisfying like side character arcs I can remember reading.
Honestly, I think he had the most growth in a way.
Yeah.
I think the most change of probably, I would say there's four main characters in this book: Danio, Adria, Antonami, and Jelena in a smaller sense. And I think of those four, I think he might have even had more of a growth than Danio did.
Yeah, and
because I couldn't stand him
too.
Yeah, initially I could not stand him, but he ended up being one of my my favorite
characters. I couldn't stand him either. Yeah.
He was just so entitled and just like the cliche of a spoiled brat and who just doesn't need to know anything about the world or care about other people because of his family's status and wealth, and then to see that genuine change was really satisfying. Like to see it, like feel like it was meaningful and that it was genuine, and the way Kay portrayed that and it got through to us, the reader, like it just so well. Yeah, quite memorable. Yeah. What a great little arc. And then the race itself.
Oh my
That's
god.
one of my favorite chapters.
Oh, definitely
of
the
my
highlight.
life.
Yeah.
That was I think like Chris said, that was the highlight of the book. It was so good. And it was that thing again where he was using like different POVs for every different character in the race, and it just worked so well, and it was genuinely so intense.
Yeah, I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I mean, I felt like I was watching a movie in like 6K on a 100-inch screen. I was just like, I was in it. It was
that was like a Ben Hur moment if I ever saw it, right?
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
so dramatic. It was so dramatic, and like the little things, like he made me empathize with the enemy horse racer, like the guy that was about to like maybe kill Adria. He went for the backstory in the middle of that chapter, where I'm like, oh my god, I actually like empathize with you now and understand where you're coming from, and like don't hurt Adria too badly, but like I understand this is what your whole life is like. This is your job, and you got your family and your horse expertise in business and everything. Like I in the middle of that race, I'm like, oh god, I was trying to hate you. And like he doesn't let you make anyone a caricature, like you and man, the tension.
Nobody's one-dimensional. Nobody's one-dimensional in this book. It's just I was smiling when he switched to Carlo's point of view, and I was like, oh man, he's giving a voice to this presumably douchebag that's just gonna try to run her off the track, and now I feel bad for him because he's got this wife and he's got kids, and and now I feel all bad for him. And like you said, it's like I want Audra to win, but at the same time I'm like, I don't want this guy to like lose everything for his family.
And then how about how it happened, like the way it played out, I couldn't have dreamed up. This is why I'm not a writer myself. Like I am amazed with what people come up with, like what Kay came up with for how the race played out and the way it ended. Like I was like, no, nothing's gonna satisfy me here. Like if Adria just wins, like, or if she loses, but the way that she almost died and then did the amazing like side saddle double leg kick, and then the guy's horse keeps going, so he wins. Adria gets the satisfaction of knowing that she really won, but she can hold back and get second, get Falco the money, not have to be mobbed as the winner, and let her identity come out. Like everything, the way it played out, just like I wouldn't have been able to dream it up myself, but it felt like perfection, the way it all played out and wrapped up. And that was a scintillating scene, like you said, Darka. Like I was seeing it in 6K, and it rocked my world. Like I loved every second of it, and like everyone in the audience too, like have different wagers and bets, like different loyalties for the different districts of the city based on their bets. Like, and they're like they don't know who this mysterious woman rider is, and like the way it all went down, I was enraptured. Just amazing.
But Daniel
was cheering. Yeah. No matter who they bet on, everybody was just cheering. I like that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then this chapter ends again with a rando. We had Cordelio, the shoemaker.
The random guy that bet everything on.
And he's like thought that he like lost his bet, which is everything and it turned out he won and made a fortune, and then a guy tells us the reader everything that happened in his life, and it's just the way it ends. It's just random, and it's just like perfect,
Yes. That was such an impactful little tale. Like this guy is just down on his luck, and this is like the last gasp to try to turn things around, and he just lost, and then this little fantastic element comes into play. Like why do we care about realism in books or in fiction? Like it's fiction. We can dream up anything that our imagination can possibly dream up. And I love that his ticket changed in his pocket, and that he was able to cash in, and what an amazing detail, and just such a way to end that chapter from that perspective.
For sure. One thing I want to go back on is Danio's first kill with the merchant. And we didn't touch on that with back in
Malaysia.
wherever that is, Malaysia. And what are your thoughts on maybe how Danio's mindset was and on that first kill? Because I think essentially he only killed 2 people in his whole life, right? I think from what I remember from the titles.
Yeah,
I remember it being just like a very quick, intense scene where.
Do you think it was like reactive on his part because it was his mentor that he was like defending, or his friend Marani, and or do you think it was just?
What was the result of killing that merchant? So the merchant basically wanted to take over.
He was
city,
kind
right?
of because I guess the city state was now sort of like up for grabs. I think this guy was like making a sort of like a power grab for the city and like finding accusation of who is to blame for this murder, kind of thing of Umberto. And so for me, I felt like that was one area where I didn't get quite, like you said, Ben, I don't feel like I got enough information to where I can like understand really the ramifications of what would have happened in that scenario. But,
yeah, I think the merchant framed Morani, right? Am I remembering that correctly? And
I think so. Yeah, I think he was going to frame him for, or at least be responsible for everything that did, and eventually he was responsible anyway. He got murdered horribly, for failing to guard Umberto. But yeah, I don't know. It was I didn't feel like I didn't get enough maybe reflection on Danio's part on that, and that might have been my only, if I had a gripe.
Yeah,
and it's hard to have. It's hard to have a gripe on this story, but
yeah.
I'm with you. I'm with you that because now that you're talking about it, it's like not very distinct in my memory of that section in the book. Like it really was just, I think, really quickly glossed over in the telling.
Mm-hmm. For a story that's about a reflective of everything and all of his actions and what came of it. Now, I do think he did tie in because he became sort of accomplice to Adria, and I think that do play out in the rest of the story. But I feel like I would have liked to known a little bit more how he was feeling, killing somebody.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's an unreliable narrator thing. Like maybe he's just not telling us because it kind of paints him in a bad light.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point.
How about after the race? One of my favorite quotes that I flagged, just to go back to where Danya's talking about what he was doing on the night road that night, where he tracked down Adria after she had left town, and I just love this. I was not in anything resembling a tranquil state of mind, but I had a decision to make. I think that when we're young, we often have the sense that what we do when faced with a choice will define our lives forever. This can be untrue, sometimes amusingly so, but not always. And then he just goes on to mention how the events proved his feeling that night to be true. Man, that he chose. What did he say? Even if we can see that no man can know what would have happened had he turned north or east instead of south at some place where roads divide. Like, he just knows that day changed his life forever. And man, what a choice he made to go track down Adria, which resulted in one of my favorite scenes of the book, where she was not expecting to see him again, and like I think noticed him at the race and was like shaken by it a little. But they're crackling like sexual romantic energy and dialogue like at their meeting that night, and the way it plays out where they're using all this sexual innuendo, like, but they're both pretty like also innocent and naive because they're both inexperienced. Like one of my favorite moments in any book ever. Like there were a lot of these in this book. It's really, I think, becoming a favorite book for me. But I couldn't have loved this part more where they meet each other again after the race.
Because he kept thinking she doesn't know my name.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because he had that regret where he never told her his name after the escape. But if I recall correctly, she did know his name, and he was surprised by that.
Yeah, I think she remembered him even from back when he saw her first as a student.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, but it was such a nice reunion. Not to last.
Yes. Poorly interrupted.
But what a crackling scene though that was, where like they have this great bit of dialogue, and their dialogue like comes back in their letters to each other later, like when their letters finally get through. Like I love the little details in the language and prose choices like that all matter, and I just love that so much. And then I think he ended that chapter with this little like omniscient narrator bit where he talks about like storytelling and he's talking about like being immersed in the story. Like we want to sink into the tale, leave our own lives behind, find lives to encounter, even to enter for a time. We can resist being reminded of the artificer of the craft. We want to be immersed, lost, not remember what it is we are doing, having done to us as we turn pages, look at a painting, hear a song, watch a dance. Still, that is what is being done to us. It is. Even so, we do turn the page and can be lost again. Let's go. And in that deep engagement, we may find ourselves or be changed because the stories we are told become so much of what we are, how we understand our own days. So here it is again. A man on a horse in springtime riding alone, and he is young, and a breeze is blowing. Let's go. Let's freaking go. We turn the page.
Oh.
We learn that a year has passed. Flowers have died and returned. Green leaves again on the trees. Another spring's sunlight. A falcon soars, dives to kill. It continues. ... What an amazing part ending there. Like he just goes omniscient and he becomes like Guy Gavriel Kay, the writer, talking to us, and it works. It works.
Yeah. That might actually be my single favorite page of the book. It was just so well written.
It's so awesome, for sure. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Sardi shows up and gets shot like instantly.
but then his life changes too. So
that was Adria's father, right there. Or his
Adria's father.
Yeah.
And Daniel's just like hiding in the hall.
Like he did in the beginning when before he hiding.
Man, he came so close to dying there. That's when they both had to think quickly and how he could get out of that situation and not be killed by either Falco or her father. This is a trope I love in books where we hear about this really like strong personality character who's like in the background somewhere, and then they finally step on the page. Like I love that. Like we get Adria's father, and he is like just he lived up to what I was expecting of this powerful Duke. Man,
it's kind
I love that.
He's so dumb though. He just sees a guy knocking on the door. He's like, shoot him. It's like, come on.
But it made sense. Like he wouldn't have expected that to be like a famous like Duke's son.
Yeah, I think he was paranoid, and then later on we see why he's paranoid, right?
Yeah, because he's pretty much xenophobic. I mean, not xenophobic, agoraphobic.
And
he's afraid of.
Yeah, but it seems maybe appropriate for the times of like that's the era of Machiavelli and everyone's trying to figure out like how can they maintain authority over their city state, and there's all these competing factions, and so it's this whole area like I think Mindlin really mentioned it before about the instability. It's like that's like a defining feature of this era, and the politics of the setting is just like how unstable it is. And I love like getting to look into the mercenary companies, because like we get a sense that like they don't want to go to war and fight big battles. Like they just want to pocket people's money, not actually battle. And just like there's this big high level political game going for control of territories in Italy at this time. And it's like such a high stakes political chess game everyone's playing, and the Pope's involved with it too, and different noble families. And like I love that we just get all the sense of this greater world building, even if it's not a focus of the story. I think it adds a lot of impact around the edges.
And then, unfortunately, big spoiler here. This is not, the horse race was not Adria's last action sequence, unfortunately for her. I did not expect her to go.
No, I thought she was going to be a nun.
About what? Yeah. There was still about like 1/4 of the book left too.
Yeah.
She was reflecting on the roof of like, all right, I'm leaving my freedom behind, and I'm gonna be a nun. And then all of a sudden, like Guy Gavriel Kay like went from this really like elegiac reflective mode where it's like, oh, there's not much is happening, to like, whoa, people are invading the keep, and they're being led in the gate. Like, oh my god. And she rouses everyone, and then we get the fight scene, and like I was in denial. I thought she was just gonna like save the day and be like heroic.
Mm-hmm.
It really took me by surprise when she got the sword in her stomach, and seemed like in no time she was like dead. Like that was brutally surprising.
Yeah. She just started
went out how she would like to. I think she went out her. Sure. I think she went out how she was, I think, destined to, because she did not want to live a life as a nun. So she died as a warrior. So I think that was a better way for her.
Yeah, there's a certain poeticness to how she didn't have to live untrue to herself, but still so sad. Like she was planning on being like this power player from the nunnery.
She was the brightness, right?
Yeah,
like Adria was the brightness that Daniel is talking about. And, so
I mean, he tells us that repeatedly, like highlight of his life, despite everything that happened in his life after her. 2 marriages that the first, and he liked her, but nothing to the point where he felt for Adria. And then his second marriage was he tells us that he just didn't even like his wife.
How about this line from near the end? Oh, did you mark something?
Yeah, I was gonna say the last area of her chapter. I love the whole thing, and like you were talking about earlier, Ben, about we get those like fantasy moments where we get that spiritual reflection of a deceased character, and I love the little missive part to the final part of our chapter. It says, "The sailors say the rain misses the cloud, even if it falls through light or dark into the sea. I miss her like that as I fall through my life, through time, the chaos of our time. I dream she is alive even now, and there is nothing to give weight or value to that. It is only me and what I want to be true. It is only longing. We can want things so much sometimes. It is just the way we are."
Oh, so good. And later on, he's reflecting about. Oh yeah, go Zammar.
Well, I was just saying it's the same one from the beginning of the book. Like I read that exact same passage earlier, and he just uses it again in the perfect place.
Oh, the rain falling through the cloud. Oh my god, so poetic. But I don't particularly love poetry because it's like beautiful language without removed from like context of like a story and narrative. And it's these beautiful poetic moments embedded in this larger narrative that has grounded me in a story and with characters I care about. And that's when poetry like this really hits for me. And it's beautiful. And later on, there's a less poetic line, but just when he's reflecting about Adria, she did not live her life to be a memory for me or anyone, but she is. Some people mark you as they go by. Like GGK is just dropping truth bombs throughout this book that I feel like are just hard-earned wisdom from him over his life, that he's just like, he could only write this particular book, like, later on in his life. Like, this is not a book capable of being written by, you know, a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Mike with the great line here. When she got stabbed, I was wondering how they were going to get Yelena there in time. Yes, me too. I'm like, oh, okay. She just has to hold out. She just has to hold out a little bit. And then it's like, oh no, is this like a gut wound? Like, I know that's not good, but don't worry. Like, we'll hold out. And then just like, oh my God, she's really gone. Because I was imagining this future of like, she's going to the nunnery, but she's already thinking like she's going to be this power player, like writing letters and sneaking out of the nunnery. And so like, she's going to still be able to see Danya. Like I was just like creating this imaginary future for her that was still like, okay. And man, just brutally tragic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it feels like it had to happen for this book to work. You know, like there's just a general sense of melancholy throughout the narration. You can tell that this is like something that's been with Dania for a long time, like literally the brightness long ago.
And Zammar, I think you really touch on that at the very beginning of this with the way her chapters are written in present tense. We're not getting a reflective voice from her. We are getting what she is going through at that moment, at that point of time. So that kind of gives the reader almost an indication, almost a foreshadowing that she's not around, you know, for the whole story, you know, or at least, you know, the part, you know, a future kind of thing for her. So I think that's kind of why Guy went with that present tense voice with her. It was just here and now with Adria, for sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because it's like it's very much I feel like thematically this book really is about like the moments that define life and the ones that stick with you, and it's like those particular moments which just change everything and leave such a big impact on you. And like every scene with Adria was basically like that for the characters around her. Mainly for Daniel, but also the others, like even Sardi, I think, had an impression, and Helena as well. And that's why I was thinking, like, I genuinely think the title refers to her specifically.
Yeah.
Like she was that brightness long ago. You know?
Also, you gotta love when a title itself, like, after her death and as he's reflecting more on her death, and that became clear that this title is mostly maybe referring to her specifically. Like it just, the title made it all take on a little extra poignance. Like I love when the title does that there's resonance with things in the book that are a little more subtle, and they only become known as you read more, you know, most of it or all of it. So that I just love that the title itself is really adds to the impact, like you're talking about, Zammar. I think you're right on about the title being related to that.
So
one of my oh yeah, what's your question?
Oh, I was trying to remember. She met Daniel just the 2 times, right?
I think that was
in person, yeah.
Yeah, and then they had those letters.
She was trying to write them, and her letters were getting intercepted. So she only got that one last letter through it, from my remembering of the read. Yeah. And
but
just,
like you're talking about, Zammar,
crazy, just those small interactions and what an impact it leaves, not only as on the character, but on us as a reader, because those were very impactful moments between those two.
Yeah, for sure.
He's actually in present tense with Danyo, and after like Danyo and Adria have their time together at night, that was so electrically charged, and that's when he says, "I'm branded with you, Adria." And this is one of my favorite lines from the book. I mentioned in our Discord chat, but first time he said her name, and such a thought, such a lovely, such a sad thought. Why is there always sadness, she thinks, entangled with joy? Why is that how life must be? Oh, okay, it's present tense because we're with her POV. But like
that's a chef's
what
kiss.
A line.
Yeah.
What a line. Why is there always sadness, she thinks, entangled with joy? Why is that how life must be? Just
because you know the joy is short-lived, right? Like that's why. So
speaking on her death, there's something I highlighted, and it spoke to when you have nations and leaders who are warring, but it says the dying, when matters came to that, tended to be done by others. farmers whose fields were ruined, harvested crops seized, and who starved accordingly, while men and women in a city like Rosso now, which was refusing obstinately, recklessly, to yield to him and simply deliver the taxes they owed at Vecna. If they forced them to come back next year and breach their walls, there'd be a terrible price paid here. There would have to be. You couldn't allow these refusals. So, I mean, I think that's so applicable even now. Like, it's these soldiers or it's these innocents that die, and not those who start the wars in the first place.
Yeah, great little bit of social commentary there.
Yeah.
Incisive social commentary.
So we get the final confrontation between our two city lords here.
Mercenary
We
captains.
finally get a little bit of insight as to their rivalry, and I don't know how that was going to play out. I don't think from just the two books I've read by GGK, is not a big writer of war or all that, and I wasn't sure if we were going to get a battle scene here, but I think it still left a pretty good impact with what happened. And again, another shocking death and outcome from this little scene. And
what a scene!
Oh,
What a scene!
But
Like it.
I love
yeah.
we get the flashback to the original
Yes.
confrontation and why that happened too. So,
but before we even go there, like, it's been leading up to this moment with just hints thrown in about how Sarantium is in danger, right? And everyone's kind of like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You know, Monticula's son is going there, but like, it'll be fine. Sarantium can never fall. And then it does fall. And it's like, it just completely shakes the world. Everyone's like, oh my God, that was not meant to happen.
I have that line highlighted because that was the line from Nardos, you know, that little one-off character. That's how he ended the chapter. And that, like, that the way that left an impact on me. It's like, you know, Seratinum is this, you know, I picture, you know, on the historical brain in me, that's Istanbul, Constantinople, you know, kind of thing. And you know, you get the indication that there's an importance to this, you know, being mentioned very often in this story, even though it doesn't take place near it. And I love that line, like you said, Zammar, the fall of the city shook the foundations of the world, and that was like, whoa! And what a strong wording sentence, you know, on something that's going on off screen, kind of thing.
And I thought we were gonna get like a reprieve where everyone was gonna leave and they weren't gonna fight. And I thought, like, so then it was, and then you learn that Teobaldo has been wronged in this rivalry. He didn't do something, like, it was kind of set up for a lot of the book that, like, with the way that we get introduced to him, that he killed Capo, and that, you know, we like Falco. He's very sympathetic. We're kind of primed to think that Teobaldo's just like a bad, evil guy, like villain, who's probably responsible for something bad in the past that started this rivalry. But the way that it was actually Falco and Falco's father that wronged Teobaldo, and Teobaldo didn't do anything wrong, and they for political reasons tried to cover up what, you know, actually didn't happen between him and Falco's sister, and then it makes us sympathize with Teobaldo, and this whole situation is complicated, and then instead of everyone going their separate ways, you know, he just gets killed right there by Falco's lieutenant. Just another brutal, like, instantaneous scene of violence. Like, there's all these really, like, quick hitting moments of violence that have like really impactful effects in this book, and that was one of them. Just and then, like, that's one of my favorite death scenes with the spirit, because the spirit is like trying to imprint directions on Danio and Falco to, like, take care of his wife and sons, and, like, just, man, that part of it was really like impactful too.
It was sudden too. I didn't think that Monticula would go out like that.
And it shows the respect the men had for each other, because without thinking, Falco killed his beloved cousin. I mean, he just no question, no pause. He was like, no, that was wrong. You can't, you know, and, you know, he just killed him, for that his sake, and he gave the body to Monicola's men and said, here,
Yeah.
that's the least I can do. And there was no, I'm sure there was remorse, but he knew what he had to do. And I think it was just a sign of respect for, these two houses. They had I think they had a respect-hate relationship with each other for sure.
Yeah. And he also sent out a letter, right? Which said that Monticola didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah. That brought a sense of like justice and closure to like a lot of the character conflict that ended in a satisfying way for me. And the way that Danya went back to Monticola's widow, who he said she was going to kill him if Teobaldo died, but he still went back and risked going back and, made sure that she was taken care of and the sons were in a good position. And everything, it wrapped up in a really satisfying with a lot of closure. But I just to go back, because we haven't talked about some of the middle part of the book for Danio, because his journey, there was a moment right in the middle of his journey where I had no clue where his life was going to take him. It's like his time after the race, it was like, what is he going to do? Like Teobaldo wants him to go be a tutor for him. And I'm like, ooh, that'd be fun. Like we're going to spend time like in Teobaldo's court and he's going to have this high status position. And but he's
and
like,
Falca wanted to spy
yeah,
on
and Falca wanted to spy. I'm like, okay, he's going to be like an unwilling spy and tutor. Like I was like on board for that. And then I did not expect him to actually go back to like fantasy Venice, to his like hometown, and like actually do the bookshop thing with his brother. And that was like a little bit of cozy like bookshop, like entrepreneurship, like Travis Baldry like stuff going on right in the middle. But it didn't last for long, because then the Duke of Venice, whatever that town was called, Saressa, became aware of him, and I loved getting involved with the Duke, and his conversations with the Duke going back and forth were so great, because that was such a smart, clever character.
And the assassination attempt too. There was that as well.
Yeah. So that little section of the book was so interesting, and then another throwaway character, the guard that came to pick him up to go to the palace ended up becoming his personal guard that ended up being this companion for him. So many little great things came of that time in Saressa. It wasn't a major part of the book, and probably way down on the impactful sequences, but it was such a surprising turn that his life went, because I expected him to remain in the middle of intrigue, and no, he just went back home and started the bookshop. That was cool. I really, because so much of this was so unpredictable.
Yeah, and then he started reconnecting with Adria too. So at that point, I was just like, oh, Daniel's going to leave this bookshop and he's going to go get Adria from the nunnery, and, they're going to go do their thing. And then it just didn't happen. That was so sad.
Yeah, instead he becomes a kind of foreign diplomatic officer of his city.
Yeah.
And that's how he becomes embroiled in the big events again as this representative, which was really cool. And placing him back right in the middle of things for the ending. Man, it just it all fit together. All these little puzzle pieces just fit together so perfectly. The plotting, the character arcs, it all came together here for just such a satisfying ending, because it wasn't predictable, but yet looking back, things feel inevitable. And that's always kind of where I want to be with my books.
I think this is what made this book so lifelike and so realistic, because there was no destiny for anyone. And even if they thought they had one, they didn't end up that way. And that's how life often happens. You have certain goals or expectations, and life just no, sorry, I'm sending you another way. And, and DGK described this in stark detail with this story. That's why everything was so unpredictable, and you were just so shocked by some of the decisions and then the ramifications of some of those decisions. So I appreciated that. That made it even, more of a memorable read, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It was so unpredictable where anything was going to land for anybody, honestly. whether there was going to be ramifications for killing Umberto in the beginning of the book, which didn't really come to pass. Nothing.
Yeah.
There was no ramifications for that murder or the murder of the merchant. Nothing ever came of it. Where you thought maybe something would eventually, maybe like imprisonment or something on those lines. But yeah, nothing ever came of that. And like you said, Darko, you just, people have, thoughts of what they were going to do. And, it's like, nope, that's not going to happen the way you think it's going to, some for better. Some of our little one-off characters had better lives than our main characters did, so.
And Yelena ends up she goes across the sea to, I think, the version of Croatia. Like she ends up in across the sea, and
Sarabia.
And there was was there someone that came to it mentioned someone.
So there's a hint that Sardi visited her.
Sardi visited her there, yeah.
Because I think he went on a journey in that direction, and then it just mentioned he stopped by this place for a while, and it was the same place Elena was, and it was just a subtle little hint. I was like, I caught you.
But the tale actually has not ended, because there's a trilogy of books that take place around the same time and place as this. So the Children of Earth and Sky, I think, takes place just a few years after this, and I think the main setting is that Croatia setting. I don't know who is a character crossover. I'm imagining Yelena will show up again, but I think the next book takes place not too long after this, and then the All the Seas of the World book, I think, takes place a little after that, in and around the Sarantium city. Don't quote me on that, but I think these three books are pretty interconnected because they're close in time and space. They're all supposed to be standalones, though.
Yeah, I think you're right, because when I found the picture art for this older version, or the one with the lion version, those other two books show up, and they have almost the exact same cover. Almost looks like a trilogy kind of thing. But I do think they are standalones. So yeah, I think you're right on that.
So that I know that you were wanting more, Chris, but I think we will get more from pretty much the same place. It won't be exactly Renaissance Italy, because we will be in other places, but it's roughly going to be similar place and same time period.
Okay. So it'll just have an older Helena.
So yeah, I mean, I was going to say, before we maybe wrap things up, it's and we were talking about maybe our next GGK book, whether it's, a month from now or 2 months from now, probably, because I know we have our TBRs that we have going on. But, I got to say, with this book, it really, the Saratine mosaic really kind of, I was like, man,
yes.
I kind of went.
Yes. No, actually, Jake, who's the super GGK fan, he said that the next two books of this kind of trilogy would have a lot bigger impact if you read Sarantine Mosaic before
first.
Them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you guys if
he advised to not read.
Go?
Yeah. He advised to not read Children of Earth and Sky and All Seas of the World next, but to go back in time. So yeah, I'm all about trying out Sarantine Mosaic. Yeah.
I'm down.
The thing I heard about this, though, it's recommended you read them because there's two, and then it's recommended you read them. It is recommended you read them almost back to back, as one book. Yeah.
There's supposed to be one book that essentially just got split for size reasons. So it's a big chunker, but no, I definitely want to go back to some of GGK's earlier stuff, whether it's the fantasy trilogy he started with, and or Tigana. Tigana's his bridge book between his high fantasy writing and the historical fantasy. It's supposed to be kind of a historical fantasy with pretty prominent fantasy elements. So that'll be interesting to see the melding of the two, before he transitioned fully to the low fantasy historical style with Song for Our Bone. But whether it's Tigana or Sarantine Mosaic, let's do it. I gotta keep going. I don't know. I like to think that I'm gonna live a long, healthy life, but I have a strong feeling that like these are going to be some of the best reads of my whole life, like all of GGK's reads, and I want to get them done. So yeah,
Cool.
whenever
we'll look at dates and then maybe see even if other members of our group like John and Zara could join in those too. So yeah.
The other suggestion, I mean, I'm totally down for Serenity Mosaic. If we want to do another standalone, I think no one else has read Under Heaven. I'd be down for that.
That's actually the first of a duology, kind of. Like, they are standalones, but there is a sequel to that one, River of Stars. So he has 2 books set in the fantasy China.
Yeah, that's high on my list too because I like that Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, the premises seemed really interesting to me, but I think it's similar to A Brightness Long Ago in that it's a duology but stands as a standalone.
Yeah.
So I mean, we can decide between either one, but I'm excited.
No, that's a must read as well. They're all must reads, but especially I think people tend to respond strongest. It seems who have read all of the books, they tend to respond strongest to Serenity Mosaic. It seems, and any of like Brightness Long Ago, Lions of Alversan, Song for Our Bone. Those seem to be like the ones that evoke those really strongest reactions. And Under Heaven, I think, kind of a close second behind those.
Yeah, I have the first one too, Sailing. So
nice.
Yeah. So.
It's a pretty cover.
I got the same version. It'll be interesting because I am so attached to his style that like even the books that are less heralded, like the 2 other ones in this set, or the Last Light of the Sun, that's like the kind of Viking invasion of England. I think I'm imagining I'm gonna love all of them. I just can't imagine not loving them. Just like the way he writes the style, like
I gotta say though, and I think Zammar can relate to this. Is I'm reading when I read his work, and then I'm like later on working on my writing. And I'm like, man, my writing is so pedestrian to this stuff. But.
Yeah, I think me and you, Chris, should just drop out right now. That's for our careers.
I don't. If one person reads my book,
I'll read it.
Like, are you, Chris? Are you going for like a style that is slightly elevated, or are you going for like John Gwynne Sanderson style, just like workman-like prose to be the vehicle for the story?
It's probably I would say John Gwynne. Yeah, it's
okay. So if you're going for that, like I got just as emotionally invested in The Faithful and the Fallen as I did Brightness Long Ago, maybe more so, honestly. But like if you're going for that style, like that, as long as it's consistent, it'll be immersive in its own way. And you don't have to compare to GGK because he's trying to do something different.
Yeah, there's a few things I have that I'm trying that I think might be nice. Nice throw in. I'm a big fan of big casts, and like I said, I like when you can take a minor character and give it so much life where it doesn't take away from the story. And and I think I am learning things from GGK. I won't get his prose down by no means, but I am the character. I feel like is something that I can kind of grasp and understand a little more too. So, guys, final thoughts on A Brightness Long Ago before we let it go.
I mean, my first GGK read, and just such a spectacular introduction to what I think very quickly just became one of my favorite authors ever from one book.
Yes.
So, and like I know I have a really good feeling that's going to continue. So I'm super excited to continue with his works.
Let's go.
Yeah, this is my second book, and much like Ben, I can't imagine not liking anything GGK has written. I was actually reading Speaking Bones and just put that down for this book, because the way it engrossed me immediately. So if all of his books are even close to this, I want to read every single word.
Where would you put this? So you read A Song for Our Bone kind of around the same time that me and Chris did, right?
Right. Yeah, because you guys inspired me to read it because y'all were doing whole group read. Yeah. So
I'm just curious, where would you currently like put these two reads, like about equal? Like for me, they're very close to equal, but I had a very clearly stronger emotional reaction to Song for Our Bones, so like that was a more powerful personal experience, and I think also it was the first exposure to this writing, and so I think that also made it a little more powerful of an experience rather than like my third book with GGK. But so like it's close to me. I like the books almost similarly, but Song for Our Bone would have been a little up there as a more powerful experience, and Brightness would be a close second, and then Lions of Valor Sound would be a close third actually for me.
I hear
like,
so many great things about Lions, so
yeah.
that's
It was great. It was great, but like
I need to read that.
I read this back to back with Lions, and like they were both amazing, but like this one just like it hit a little harder, and that like some of the extra like omniscient narrator stuff, the like just was so good. Like those flourishes, like man, there was just something a little extra about Brightness Long Go. That was
so maybe
but,
maybe like Zammar said, maybe it's better that this book wasn't as long as say Lions, because Lion is a longer book.
Yeah.
Than,
no,
so
Lions was amazing, but like this one just like, oh man, hit a little bit harder. But Darko, for you with just the Song for a Bone or Brightness, like how would you compare those experiences?
I think Song of Our Bone, I can give a definite level up, because I mean the experience was very novel for me at the time. Like you said, it was my first time reading historical fantasy, first time reading GGK, and it was so impactful and emotional for me. Reading that book, and so many great character moments in there. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that's probably one of my favorite books of all time. Definitely. Yeah.
Nice. So this one would be like second, but like not like a bad second. Like
no, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And for Chris, were you landing around the same place? Yeah.
I'm the same. I think it's tough, because when you say when you have your first experience with an author, it usually sticks with you as always, like that was the most impactful. So I'll be curious with you, Zammar, how when you read your next GGK book, is A Brightness Long Ago going to be more like that, like wow, moment, and then the next book will be like great, but A Brightness Long Ago hit more with you because that was your first GGK book. So I'll be curious for you if you will have kind of like the same impact it was for us with A Song for Our Bone.
Because even though the plots have been different in the three books and the settings very different with different inspirations, he's doing some similar things with some of the character arcs, the types of characters and the character relationships. Definitely the type of language and prose between the three books, even with the time skip between the 90s and 2019, like it felt recognizably similar prose style. And I think there is something to like that novel experience of the first time, because I'm seeing echoes of like he's doing similar things in Lions and Song for Our Bone and Brightness, with like rivalries among like these military or political like leaders of different factions, and so he has certain tropes that he's going back to, and so I do think to an extent like the first time you experience those is just gonna hit harder, but it's like so delightful to have these standalones too, because usually we read long series, and so you're in the same world, in the same setting, with the same characters, and you're seeing those develop. But these are just like complete arcs and stories within like 400 to 600 pages. Like it's so impressive that you can have that complete experience in these. And so like the fact that some of the books might feel a little similar, it's like, okay, well, if you're reading all of the Will Timer Malazan, it's like a lot of those books are going to feel similar as well, with similar character dynamics and plotting and things. But we're just kind of getting that experience over the course of different standalones. So I think I'm going to forgive a little bit.
It is a nice feeling to finish a book and like have it finished instead of like, it's like I got 20 series going on right now. And it's nice to say, I completed a book, I completed, a story, for sure. Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool, guys. I think we are hitting the 2-hour mark. Thanks for everybody who joined in the chat, or anybody who's going to watch the playback, which will probably be most of you. Definitely leave a comment. Let us know if you've read the book, what you thought about it. Between all of us will let you know when we will plan or start our next GGK book. It does sound like it might be the Serentine Mosaic, but we'll discuss as maybe a group as a whole. I'll include John and Zara, who is also part of our reading group, see where they are on their TBRs. I will have links to everybody who is in this chat, Ben, Darko, and Zammar, linked in the discussion or description below. Also, check out Zammar's 2 books that are out. We have Ribbon
Nice.
Thunder Moon, and do you want to like show those off real quick? There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I read Riven Earth, and Riven Earth was a fantastic read. So
Let's go.
can't wait
Let's
to get
go.
to
Awesome.
Thunder Moon. I just gotta work it in my TBR.
Just don't read this anywhere close to GGK. Read something crap. Read like some horrible crap first, like I don't know, some random book, and then come back to this.
Yeah, read 50 Shades of Grey or something. Then...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Twilight. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Oh,
Thanks.
man.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Yeah.